Now let's talk to a boomer who might be too young. Wait, what? Bulmaro Boomer Vicente is running for California State Assembly in the 68th District. Boomer, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
No problem, brother.
Excited.
Why do they call you Boomer?
So I got that nickname when I was in 3rd grade. So I've had a nickname since I was a small kid, and one of my friends was just like, "Your first name is a bit too hard to say," and so she was kind of spelling it out like Bull, and so the first part of my name is like Bull, and so she decided to give me the nickname Boomer. Like, I'm gonna call you Boomer, and I want to give you that nickname, and it's stuck since 3rd grade. I've had it in middle school, high school, college, and it kind of it's with me forever now.
Okay, I thought maybe you couldn't figure out internet memes, so that's how you got it. But okay, so how old are you?
I am 26 years old.
Okay, so state assembly, that's a big deal. So, some people, they become lawyers, they become this, they become that, and then they get into politics. Boom, you're right in there. Oh, get it? Boom, Boomer, I get it. Didn't even mean it. So why run for office so young?
Yeah, well, I decided to run for office because I was really frustrated in who was currently representing us. And there was someone in the seat, the former incumbent, that has been in the seat for 10 years, but has been an elected official longer than I've been alive. And my district is one of the youngest Latino districts in the state of California. I'm from Santa Ana. The average age in here in Santa Ana is around 28 years old. So it's a really young Latino city. And I think it really embodies in the sense of young representation. And I think definitely we need to have more young people run in politics, especially for state assembly, state senate seats, and really given what the district represents and who lives in the district, it was time. It was definitely time for someone young to run for a seat like the state assembly here in my district.
A young Hispanic person running for a big seat at the age of 28 and winning, I mean, that's impossible. I mean, next thing you're gonna tell me is somebody like Alexandria, Ocasio-Cortez, right around your age and went to Congress. Pulled off one of the most historic defeats in American history. Okay, when she took down the 4th biggest Democrat in Congress. But did you just say that Santa Ana's average age is 28?
Yeah, it's a really young city.
Oh my God, what is going on? Have the children taken over? Why is it so young?
I think it's so young because it's a very large immigrant population. And there's a lot of young immigrants that came here in Santa Ana. My parents came here when they were around 18 to 20 years old. So they came here just like a whole group of other people. And I think it's just really the culture. It's the fact that it's a small immigrant population, and a lot of kids are the first in their family to live here, first generation. And I think it's just like that story of immigrants coming here so young and having young families, and definitely played a large role in that.
Okay, now I know. Santa Ana, opposite of Florida, they will not let you retire there. Okay, not allowed. Okay, I'm kidding, but that is an amazing stat. So, okay, now let's talk policy. If you get elected, California State Assembly, a lot of people have a misconception. They think it's overwhelmingly Democratic, so it must be really progressive. Is that true?
No, it's not true. And you're right. California has a super Democratic majority, and we can't get things like single-payer healthcare done. Our working class communities are still struggling to get by. Rents are increasing. We're in a housing crisis, and a lot of our communities, a lot of our families are moving out of California. And so there is this myth in a sense that California seems to be really progressive in a sense based on the Democrats, but it's mostly Democrats are in the way of blocking a lot of these progressive reforms like single-payer healthcare and affordable housing.
Yeah, my favorite quote about California came from another progressive, Eric Olson, who was running for assembly as well in a different district. And he said, we have a supermajority. Who are we negotiating with? We're not negotiating with the Republicans, we're negotiating with our donors. and that's exactly what happens. So then tell me about your incumbent. I think he's a bit of a mixed bag, but what are his downsides? What made you go, I got to run against this guy?
Yeah, so the incumbent in this race, who I will explain later, who actually dropped is out of the race. He is someone that really represents what a corporate Democrat is. He receives a lot of big money from police associations, pharmaceutical companies, realtors, big oil, all these kind of special interests that have been in the way of killing progressive reform. And one thing that was really upsetting was he represents, as I mentioned, like one of the youngest Latino districts in the state of California, but he's abstained and shied away on some of the most progressive bills when it comes here in the state legislature. And this past year, well, these past 2 years, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of the pandemic, he was one of the state legislatures that actually went on a lobby trip visit to Hawaii with big money, while his communities were literally dying. And Santana and Anaheim and his district were the most impacted cities in all of Orange County. We saw our communities being neglected. We did not receive vaccines in the beginning. We had to demand vaccines that were rolling through South OC, but not to cities like Santa Ana and Anaheim. And so the incumbent has just been a very huge disgrace towards our community and who he represents. And it was time that someone really challenged him. I was his first Democratic challenger in 10 years. The first time that he actually received another Democratic challenger was in 2012, in which there was a jungle primary. And surprisingly enough, the incumbent actually ended up dropping out of the race a day before the filing deadline. And so that changed a lot for what this race is. We're no longer facing an incumbent, but we are facing his successor and his right-hand man that entered the race hours after he announced his dropping.
Oh, is that right? So Daley's not in the race anymore?
Nope, Daley's not in the race anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay, then you got an awesome shot. Because incumbents have a lot more power and money, et cetera, and they can use the machine against you. And yeah, usually they anoint someone and they go, this will be your new assemblyman. And that works for a lot of Democrats. Democrats love to obey. I mean, I hate it, but it's true for a lot of Democratic voters. Republican voters generally don't obey, but Democratic voters are like, oh, who does the machine pick? I will now vote with the machine because that is what the LA Times told me. But hey, look, if you got an average age of 28, now the guy has no name recognition, Boomer's 100% in the ballgame. VicenteForAssembly.com, VicenteForAssembly.com. And it'd be great to have young progressives in. So, and by the way, about the old incumbent, he bragged about, he had one good vote on police reform, I give him that, but here's a telltale sign that somebody's a corporate Democrat. He bragged about transportation and veterans. That's like the safest topics ever. That means he's not doing anything. Like, when you have incumbents that talk about like, oh, I love puppies and veterans, you're like, okay, I got it. You're not doing anything, you're just taking corporate cash, right? So if he handpicked a successor, on that fact alone, I'm against him. Okay, so vote for Boomer. So Boomer, how about you? What are your top policy positions?
Yeah, my first top policy is helping pass single payer healthcare here in California. Single payer healthcare has been in the fight for so many years here, and COVID just really exacerbated the healthcare system. That our healthcare system is really broken here in California, and there's millions of people that don't have access to healthcare insurance. And so I really want to make sure that we pass single payer healthcare here in the state legislature. It was actually brought up this past year, but by Assemblymember Ash Kara, and unfortunately there wasn't even a vote on it. And it was a tactic to really shield Democrats from receiving the endorsements from the party. And so they didn't want to out who the Democrats were that were against single payer healthcare. And so one of my big priorities is to make sure I help champion that and just making sure that's passed. We did not see any legislature here in Orange County at all that was an ally towards single payer healthcare.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's really one of my big priorities is making sure that we pass a single payer healthcare system here in the state of California.
Yeah, for the audience out there, look, this is why we need young progressives, because Democratic leadership is full of crap everywhere. and certainly true in California. So they got a supermajority. They say, oh, we can pass anything we want. Everybody wants single payer in California. Certainly the voters do. There's no question about it. Overwhelmingly popular among Democratic voters and overall for California voters. And then they got into power and they're like, just kidding. We're not going to do it. And one of the leaders wouldn't put it up for a vote because he wanted to shield the other corrupt corporate Democrats. Exactly. And the reason why corporate Democrats fight so hard against young progressives like Boomer is because they're not corrupted, and they hate that. It drives them nuts, right?
Yeah.
So that could make a big difference. So how about another position? What's your second priority?
Yeah, one of my second big policy priorities is affordable housing. I was a huge advocate towards rent control here in Santa Ana. Santa Ana became the first city here in Orange County to pass rent control. And it was largely due to a lot of community groups and organizations and tenants to help pass that. And in the state of California, rents are increasing. And there's been a huge effort to repeal the Costa-Hawkins Act, which basically would help expand rent control towards properties built after 1994. It will apply to single family homes, mobile homes. And it's a big issue that's been largely impacting our local residents, in which we've seen mobile home residents protest and take action and want rent control when it comes to like mobile homes. And so I really want to make sure that we create affordable housing policies and that we expand rent control, because it's getting really difficult to continue living here. As I mentioned previously, a lot of families are moving to Texas, a lot of families moving to Arizona, because just it's becoming really just like very difficult to live here in California due to the high rates of cost.
So Boomer, one last quick question here. I don't get it. The number one donors in California are real estate interests. How are you going to take all their cash if you're for rent control?
I'm not.
Oh, look at that. That's what progressives do. Okay, I love it. Vicente for assembly.com. Vicente for assembly.com. Bulmaro, Boomer, Vicente, thank you for joining us, and thank you for running and being involved in the process, and for having faith and hope in it, and for chasing out an incumbent. So that's a lot of wins for you already. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.